Hello friends, in this video we are going to talk about how to tackle market entry type of questions. Before I begin, welcome to myjobpreparation.com. This is a place where you can practice for your interview questions. So let us begin now. So what kind of questions are considered in a market entry kind of situation? So the questions are type like a company wants to enter into a new geography, or they want to start a production of a new product. They want to enter in a new market with a new product, and they are looking for ways to how to approach this problem, and they want to know whether the particular plan is feasible or not, and things like that. So we will discuss all these things here, and yeah, let us begin. So when we start with market entry cases, generally there are three types of cases we have. So first one is we might be launching an existing product in a new geography. So this is the case when company already has a product in some area, but they want to launch that product in a new area. And in that new geography, such product does not exist. Second case is when the company is launching a product when already existing players are there in that market. So I might be launching some kind of a soap, but already some players are there in that market. Or I'm launching a new type of shoe, but some players are already there. So there are already existing players in that market. Then third type is new product in new geography. So here, neither the product is old, neither the geography. So both of them are new. So let us say uh, some company comes up with a car which runs on hydrogen, right? So that is the category which is there in new product in new geography type. So these are the general specific three types of cases you will have in market entry cases. And so now I will tell you the approach which you can use while solving such type of problems. So I have designed a framework which you can follow, and it is just a framework here. You can be as creative as you want because market entry cases are the ones where a person has to be more creative. These are not like profit and loss cases where you have to be more structured. But let us see how we can put some structure into solving these kind of problems as well. So first of all, I will start with what are the steps required to solve a market entry case. Let us see. There are basically three steps. Number one is clarification stage. Yeah, sorry. Clarification, and then you set the objective again, and then you start solving the case. This is strategizing. By clarification, I basically mean that when you are presented with a problem, you need to ask a certain type of questions from the interviewer so that you can set the objective clearly in your mind and you want to understand what kind of problem I am dealing with. So so one type of question which you can definitely ask is uh, basically all these questions you are going to ask is basically to categorize the problem in a specific so that you can attack it at a later stage. We will see what kind of questions you can ask in clarification. But once your clarification is done, then with the new information which you have received from the interviewer based on the questions you have asked, you need to set the objective again to ensure that you are not missing out on anything. And once you have set the objective, then you can start solving the case. Let us see now what exists in the clarification stage here. Let us start with clarification questions first. So the purpose of clarification question is basically to understand the question properly. Whatever information has been provided to you by the interviewer, there would be additional information also, but you will get that information only when you ask the clarifying questions. So this is a very critical part of the process where you need to ask why do they want to do something, and a lot more information you need to get out from them. So let us see what kind of clarification questions can be there. So first question, as in it is always like first question in case of clarification questions usually is what is the client objective? So what is the objective they want to achieve in that particular market entry? kind of question, right? So the objective can be of multiple types. Sometimes the client have their revenue flatten up in other areas and they are looking for further growth options, and that's why they are looking to enter into new markets. There would be other regions also, they are looking for more growth opportunities, or they have come up with a new product which they want to expand globally, like that, right? And whenever you're asking such questions, you need to keep in mind that if you can get some kind of quantifiable objectives, that would be better for you. Then next question is why launching now, right? So yeah, objective everyone has that, but why do they feel the pressing need that they have to launch it in now only, right? Then there are questions, clarification questions which are specific to the company, and there are some clarification questions which are specific to the market, right? So let us see further what is there in it. So yeah, let us start with client objective. So as you can see, the client objective can be like financial objective can be there, or there can be non-financial objective as well. The financial objective can be the company wants to break even in new geography. So what I mean here is that whenever they are going to launch something in new geography or new market, right? So they are just looking for breaking even, and they are not looking to make any profit in that particular market. Or their objective can be to make profit also, right? So this is something which you need to clarify. There are non-financial objectives also which a company can have, like they want to position their brand in new market, and another could be that they want to sell complementary product. For example, uh, let us say Kindle, right? So Amazon might not want to earn profit from the sale of this particular product, but they know that they will be able to sell complementary products which will give them additional profit and revenue, right? So there can be such examples. So you should ask these questions like, what is the objective? You don't have to ask in a specific format, okay, tell me your financial objective, tell me your non-financial objective. It is just for your understanding here that you should know how to categorize a specific type of objective. You can just ask simply like, what is your objective? What are you trying to achieve here, right? So this is standard company information which you will be asking them, right? Then there are second. Let us come to the second part. Why launching now? So here you are looking for reasons from the company's point of view, right? Company specific reasons or market specific reasons. So market specific reason can be that this particular market is showing good, like let us say 20% growth in this particular geography. So that is why the company is looking to launch new product there. Then company specific reason, as I told you earlier, that the company is looking to grow further, or their revenues are flattened somewhere elsewhere and they are looking for further growth opportunities, like that. Yeah. So the next type of question which you will be asking is about what does the company does currently, right? So companies are there, they are looking to launch several new things in new markets, but you also will need an understanding whether whatever they are doing currently will help them in that further expansion or not. If a company is launching a completely unrelated product, then you should be the one to know that, right? And whether do they have actual expertise to actually do that particular thing in a new market or not. So this is why you have to ask this question, right? So there would be certain part of the process which they would have experienced, or they would have really good expertise, and they want to just replicate that success story in new markets, right? Then also you want to know about that, right? So what does the company does currently? Do they want to continue doing that in new market or not, right? So for example, let us say Urban Clap, uh, wants to start in Australia, right? So why are they going to do that, and what are their core competencies in Indian market? Uh, are they going to replicate them in that market, or are they trying out something new? Right? So these kind of questions, right? Then a good clarifying question can also be about which geography is a new market. So when I'm telling about geography, this is really important because in case of markets like India, India is not a single customer segment, right? So different geographies have different customer tastes, different preferences, and there are different segmentations which can happen in Indian market, right? So segmentations can be like urban market, rural market, or you are targeting a specific state. Same would be true, I guess, for other countries as well, which you should know about, right? So, initial set of questions, as I told you, were more about trying to understand the thinking behind why clients want to do that. Then there are company specific questions. Then there would be some questions which are related to industry you need to ask, right? So, is it a new product or an existing product? Or how does the industry look like in the new market? What is the industry size, growth rate? Is the industry is in growth phase or decline phase, right? What are the key drivers in that particular industry? Who are the existing players? So these questions can be asked as these are like general industry specific questions which should be asked as a part of your clarifying questions, right? Let us see what is next. Let us see now what is there is in this colored box. So we have seen like what kind of clarifying questions you will be asking. So the reason for me to put this colored box here is basically to tell you how these questions which you are asking will fit in while you will be solving the problem, or while you will be strategizing your solution and telling it to the client, right? So just keep this in mind. It is of no use during the clarification stage, but you just know that, okay, this is how it will fit in the larger picture at a later stage, right? Now, once you have set, or once you have asked all the different clarifying questions, then you have to set the objective again, right? So I'm just reading it out to you here, so you can see how you should be reading out your objective again. So your summary might look like our client is in X industry in Y geography, and they want to enter in a market with B product, which which already does not have the other players or competitor may or may not exist, and client wants to enter because of, then you put objective here, and want to achieve this objective as per, then what constitutes success for the in the mind of client, right? So this is the loose structure here in which you just have to reiterate the objective in front of your client, and once you have set the objective, then you can start solving your case, right? So here comes the last stage of working on solving your cases, right? So the first stage is checking the financial feasibility. So financial feasibility is there are three parts of that. One is market size, then there is market share, and then there is profitability. So we start with market size. First, we want to understand what is the size of opportunity we are looking at, right? Market sizing question, how to do the market sizing, I've already covered in one of the earlier video. You can check that. So here, what we are going to do is basically first ask what kind of customer is there, right? Then if there are going to be new purchases, or there can be customers who are going to replace the existing product. Let us say a company is going to launch a car, right? So when looking at the potential customer segment, there will be customers who will be buying the car for the first time, right? So they will be the new purchase cases, but you also need to consider the cases, the customers which are going to replace their existing car in favor of the new one, which is going to be available in the market, right? And then there are like three type of restrictions which limit your market size. One is availability, and then there is accessibility, and then there is affordability, right? So availability is basically, then the question here we can ask is, can the product be available? So uh, it might be limited by supply network. It could be possible that supply is not there in all the parts of the market. Let us say some company wants to launch a product in rural market, but rural market usually have weak supply networks, right? So these kind of restrictions will limit the size of your market. Then there is accessibility part, right? So product might not be accessible. So sometimes there are drugs which are only prescription drugs, and when you go to the pharmacy, you won't be getting that drug without the doctor's prescription. So their availability is limited by how many doctors can prescribe them, right? And about that. Then affordability, it is basically about the price, and to know whether, so there will be customers who would want the product, who would need the product but cannot afford it, right? So here you need to look into both willingness and ability of the customers. So this is also going to restrict your uh, market size, right? So when you have completed the market size, then you know that, okay, what is the size of pie you are looking at, right? So let us say this is the pie. Sorry for my drawing skills. And so this is the overall pie which is available. And then you need to talk about, okay, uh, what type of competition is there? What is the market? Is it a monopoly? Are there only one or two players, or are there multiple players? When there are multiple players, then also you need to see whether there are like 40, 50 players there in that market, or are there 5, 10 players, because that will affect like what kind of implication it will have on your entry plans, right? So when there are only one or two players, then uh, you need to see that they have monopolistic hold on the market, and uh, like you, there would be other players also who would want to enter into that market but might not be able to do so, right? So you need to see whether the pie is growing or not, right? Because your better hope there would be that pie, the size of pie grows and you are able to grab some part of that growth, right? That is one. If the market is stagnant, then your recommendation can be that already the players are there and market is also not growing, then it becomes very difficult for client to actually enter into that market. So that can be one of the way to look at it, right? Then you might need to ask here, like, what makes the existing players as a monopoly? What constitutes monopoly for them? Is it some kind of supply network they have, or is it access to capital, infra, or is it because of some policy which is favoring those players? So, and then you need to see like how can you uh, get into that club, or how can you also work with those barriers, and then check how do you enter in that market, right? Like let us see now, next is like there are multiple players, so there are two cases here. One is there are like 40, 50 players, and in second case there could be like 5 to 10 players. When there are 40, 50 players, then you definitely know that there is no clear market leader in the market, and market is completely fragmented, right? So there would be players which will have 2% market share, 3% market share, 1% market share, and so on, right? So two things to look here would be, one, is there any product differentiation in that market? Second, uh, why don't we just acquire one of the player in that market and then have some kind of head start with 1 or 2% market share there, right? Then then you can see if there is no market, if there is no differentiation in the product, then you can see like how can you introduce some kind of differentiation and then gain market share. If there are 5, 10 players in the market, then these players are having market share of the order of 10 to 20%, right? So a very good strategy to look into this case is to know how did the last entrant perform in this market, right? Then you can see that whatever you are going to do now, it will be somewhat similar to what the last entrant ended up doing, right? So it will provide you some kind of benchmark to standardize your performance against, right? So this is what last performer did. For example, you can see that last performer captured say 10% market share in 3 years. So that is some kind of realistic target you can also have, and you can see how is the product differentiated in this. How do these players differentiate their product, and how can you have a competitive advantage in any part of the value chain. So I'm again and again talking about this term which is value chain, right? So this is very important in such cases. You should understand value chain of whatever client you are working with. How do they add the value in multiple stages as the product goes in the company, right? So now you have understood the market size, market share. Now you are also able to understand how much part of the pie you are looking for to target, right? Now you have seen about what is the size of pie through market size, and for market share. Okay, we can now find out like how much part of the pie the we are going to target, right? The next part is, are we going to be profitable while doing that, right? So profitability is important for the company. Even if the company says that they are not looking for profit, you should understand that they are not looking for infinite losses also. They are not going to provide their product for free, even if they are going for brand positioning there, right? So there would be some percentage of losses where they would want to contain their losses, right? So there would be a ceiling which they don't want to cross, right? So this is about understanding the feasibility part. So while understanding the feasibility, understand that this is the ideal case scenario we are assuming here, assuming everything goes perfect, customers are available for us, there is no restriction for us, right? So once we have understood that part, then we will start talking about the barriers, right? So there are two types of barriers, and internal barriers, which are largely called as operational barriers, and then there are external barriers. We need to deal with external barriers first, and there are like following type of barriers which the company can face while entering into a new market. First one is economies of scale. Sorry. Right? So, company might have to reach a certain scale before they can expect some kind of financial feasibility in that market. So, for example, a e-commerce company won't be able to run it successfully until they achieve a certain level of volume because of the fixed cost, because of the capital infusion which happens in the beginning, right? So then there will be restrictions. There can be restrictions because of capital requirement. Sometimes the bigger companies don't have any problem in funding such projects, but if the initial capital requirement is high and your client does not want to invest that much money, that can be also source of a barrier for them. Then there is switching cost, right? So customers have some kind of loyalty or some kind of binding towards the existing product, and they are very hard to switch over to some new product, right? So these kind of barriers are dealt here. Then there can be restricted access to value chain. So value chain, let us consider the example as we have earlier taken. One is like we start with raw materials to production to distribution, and then to marketing, right? It could be possible that a specific part of it is complete control of some players, and that access is restricted. It can be also that some kind of licensing requirements are there, which definitely we will cover in government policies. But here I'm more in general talking about monopolistic control on some part of value chain. So there can be multiple examples here. And then there are government policies. Sometimes government have their policies favored in to favor domestic industry, and their policies are tilted towards them, which may pose a problem for external players who are entering into that market. Then next could be there could be a proprietary product technology which is not accessible for all, and it can be one critical component of the uh, product or the value chain which you don't have access, right? So after the proprietary product technology, there can be a case where the barrier is because of product differentiation. And then there can be also case of brand loyalty. Like customers are very hard to switch, and it is very hard for them for the new company to uh, change the customer behavior and make them use the new product which your company is selling, right? So these are the external barriers. And now I will talk about internal barriers, which is more interesting. Yeah. So in terms of internal barriers, there are majorly four, right? One is raw materials, production, distribution, and customers, right? So customer is basically what I mean here is marketing, right? So in terms of operational barriers, so what I mean here is that let us say the company is uh, so the in part of your as a result of your initial calculations, you came up with that the total size of market is coming out to be, let us say, $100,000, right? So that is your potential market. But what would happen if you don't have that much distribution capability? Or let us say you have that much distribution, but what if your production is not up to that mark? Or you don't have raw material sufficient to give you that much production, right? So you need to look into that aspect as well, right? So no matter, so depending on whichever part is weakest here in this value chain, it will affect your final number which you will end up selling, right? So uh, you have to ensure that your entire operations will be driven by the uh, that part of the value chain which is lowest or which is scarcest for you, right? So if all of this doesn't work and you come up with, let us say, the plan is not coming out to be very feasible for you, then there is a last resort you have, which is either to acquire or have some kind of a joint venture with players, right? So when you are looking for acquisition, then again there are three or four type of things you need to deal with. Like, is there anyone willing to sell, or do you have enough money, or are there any government regulations restricting uh, such acquisition, or which part of the value chain will the integration happen, right? So when a company is looking to acquire, they might be looking to acquire someone with access to raw material, or they might look to acquire a production unit so that they don't have to invest from the beginning in this particular part of the value chain, or they want to uh, tie up with some third party vendors, right, to get access to the distribution, right? And they might be looking for marketing as well. So when we are looking for acquisition, so there are again two options: either acquire or joint venture, right? And in case of joint venture also, you need to see which part of the value chain will you have the integration, right? So this is the overall framework, overall process I have explained you, and this is the complete flow chart